How's it going? Welcome to the big show. It is the Line Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show. I'm Ironhead. That there in the middle is the dear Goon, and Brandon Noble is the gentleman on the right, at least on my computer screen, as we look at it today. Lots to get into throughout the course of the show today. Obviously, Penn State football held Media Day, and the excitement is building. And I want to start there just a little bit, Goon, because somebody mentioned something to me over the weekend, and I don't disagree with it. And we've basically been advocating that this is the case, but I never really sat down and thought about it. But the person I was talking to said, listen, as tough as the start of that Penn State schedule is, those first four games, the contention of my friend is, get decreasingly difficult. So that Wisconsin is the toughest game. Ball State is the second toughest of those first four. And in all seriousness, Auburn is the third toughest with the coaching change there and with where they're at and with what Ball State has coming back. And I'm not sure, again, we've basically been saying that without saying it. And I hadn't really sat down and thought about it, but I was kind of going and looking at the rosters today. I'm not sure he's not right about that.
Yeah. Ball State's loaded, man.
And then Villanova, would be the fourth game in there. But, we keep talking about how much that Ball State game worries us. But I do think at the end of the day, Auburn has a great reputation, and it's not that there aren't some great athletes. I mean, I think if you I haven't sat down and looked at the stars. I'm sure there's more stars in terms of the recruiting rankings on that Auburn roster than there is Ball State. But again, it's a really veteran Ball State team, and as much excitement as there will be for that Ball State game here, and there will be just because it's the first time we'll all be gathered at Beaver Stadium and seemingly forever. It is hard to envision Auburn coming in here with that whiteout game and with what Penn State has coming back. I just, again, it's college sports, crazy things happen, but boy, I'm hard pressed to come up with a strong scenario where Auburn walks into Beaver Stadium and walks out of there with a victory. I think it's a pretty easy draw to get to that point with that Ball State game. Again, in part because of where it sits, in part because of the reputation or lack thereof, and in part just because of how veteran that team is and how excited and I think gung-ho they're going to be coming in. But just your thoughts. Again, we've talked quite a bit about these first four games. And welcome back, dear Goon. Should have started with that.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Yes, Ball State is absolutely loaded, returning from the MAC title. And I think that they've absolutely destroyed the transfer portal. Got a lot of 50-year guys who wanted to come back and play. So they're actually, really, really good. But the only thing that Auburn has right now that really scares me is the Boise State. It's their new head coach. Is their ability to really sneak up on somebody. And they will. I mean, he's trying to change the culture down there. That doesn't happen overnight, but what a better way to get off on a right foot than going up to Penn State up north and taking care of a top 10 or top 15 Penn State team. So, no, what do you got? I mean, we've talked about that Ball State's pretty legit. Auburn is Auburn.
I think that, when you look at that Ball State game, the thing that scares me about it is the fact that they're loaded. I mean, that's a good football team. Well coached. They've won a lot of football games. It's sandwiched in between marquee games, right? It's between Wisconsin and Auburn. And whatever you think about Auburn, it's still Auburn, right? The name carries weight. And so from a player's perspective and a coach's perspective, right, you got to be careful that no matter what happens at Wisconsin game, you don't automatically go, okay, well, here's a win, and we're going to go on to Auburn, right? And we're all a little bit guilty of that, Keith. I know when you're playing the Eastern Michigans or whatever it is, at the beginning of the season, you do it. You have a tendency to do it, and that's the scary thing is it's almost natural. And so when that happens, you go, all right, you got to get focused, you got to get locked in, because a win against Ball State lets you go into that Auburn game feeling really, really good about it. And as crazy as it sounds, I think one thing that the fan base has to be careful of is not being distraught if it's not an easy win.
Yeah.
Right. If it's a football game right now, look, man, it should be a football game. That's a good football team. So, I had not thought all the way through kind of what Jeff was saying there with like Auburn maybe isn't quite the Auburn that it used to be. And so maybe those two teams will kind of flip, right? But the name brand recognition for Auburn is what it is.
Yeah. How about I know we're going to start talking about camp here in a little bit, but you talked about the Eastern Michigans we're playing. I mean, how good was the old man at pumping those teams up?
Oh yeah, you saw that there with Newt Rockney and the boys were over there. I don't even know where Eastern Michigan was when we played them. I don't
even know if it was in the state of Michigan, but I think it is.
Yeah.
But we knew that they had invented the game and had won 4 national titles straight.
That's exactly
on August 15th.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And yeah, you were terrified to go play those guys. Absolutely. And it was really, and once you got into the game, you're like, oh, okay, all right, we're gonna be okay here, But man, yeah, he was always good at that. And those games are tough too, right? I mean, I remember playing, the Temples and the Rutgers of the world too, where it's a game for a quarter because it's their, super cliche, it's their Super Bowl, right? It's their big game. And that can be scary. And that's what I think scares me the most about Ball State, right? Is like, that's a very good football team that, I mean, imagine the national recognition that program gets coming into Happy Valley and stealing one. We're not even just winning it.
And if we go out to Wisconsin and upset them, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. We're the underdog going out there. We go out there, win that game, have all that juice and this and that across the country, and Ball State comes in and whoops our,
that would be good.
All for nothing.
Yeah.
It's much like Thursday night's game, Ironhead. All the marbles. Pittsburgh Steelers, Eagles, Thursday night, national audience.
The magic, hopefully will continue. Great start for the Steelers against Micah and the Cowboys there. Clearly sets the tone for a Super Bowl championship season. Brandon, I wanted to talk a little bit to you with, NFL training camp. And, I did end up – I actually watched more of that Steelers-Cowboys game than I was planning to. Didn't see much of the first half, oddly enough. But, it is interesting when you get to this stage of camp where, decisions are starting to be made by coaching staffs and organizations about, who's going to be on that roster moving forward. And, obviously these are important games for guys that are battling for jobs and an opportunity to stick in the NFL. And, a lot of times I think you do see guys kind of how they're going to respond in those pressure situations, because while these preseason games, we talk a lot kind of jokingly about the from a fan base standpoint, whether or not they win or lose is irrelevant. But man, I mean, these are absolutely critical games and opportunities here for the guys that are trying to make these rosters, and again, figure out whether they can make a livelihood at the sport of football.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're talking to one on your other side of between me or other side of me and you who did that for. I mean, I'll let him tell the story, but I think he tells it the best. I mean, 8-10 years? How many camps you go to, Nobes?
I did 9 training camps.
And how many did you go into knowing you were going to make the team?
None.
And how many times did you think you were going to make the team?
None. Yeah.
Yep.
It is. I think at the end I knew I was going to make the team, the last couple. But up until that point, man, I went to my first one in San Francisco and I like to tell the story. We're showing up, and I wish I could remember where we were. We were some college in Death Valley out in California. I was with the Niners, and pull up, and you ride a bus from the San Francisco airport or Oakland airport, whatever it is, all the way out to camp, and you pull in, and everybody's checking in. I get my, I go, I get my room key, right? And so everybody, oh, what room are you in? What room are you in? I'm in, again, like 4G, whatever it is, right? 4G. This other guy's like, I'm in 4G too. Another one of the undrafted free agents. And we're walking, and all of a sudden, you look and there's like 5 or 6 of you walking towards this room. And next thing you know, like the main group of the team goes off to the right, and your building's over on the left, right? And you walk over here to this other building, and it's a classroom building. And you realize that, like, they've basically taken the divider out of 2 classrooms and laid 20 cots in this room. And that's where 20 of you are going to start camp, right? And that's where you are. No, there was a bathroom. I don't know if we had a shower over there. It was really a weird deal, but it was a classroom. I mean, it really was. And that room, man, like every couple of mornings, the Reaper would come in at about 5 o'clock, and you'd hear the door creak open, and you'd hear all the beds kind of creak and shuffle, man. It was like being 3 years old and thinking the boogeyman was coming in. You get up under that cover and get tight into that pillow, and he'd walk over and tap somebody on the shoulder and say, hey, man, coach wants to see you bring your playbook. That guy would get up, grab his playbook, leave the room, and you'd never see him again. And that was how I spent my first camp, and you all come back, and 20 guys in one room. And by the end of it, right, there's maybe 12 or 13. There's a couple empty beds, and there's cycling guys in and out, right, that come in for a couple days. And I actually made it through that. I made it out of that room and made it back to the facility. I was staying in a hotel when I got cut, but it was the same thing. I actually went to a meeting. I guess the Reaper couldn't find me. And so I make it to this meeting. I think, oh, man, I might have squeaked through this thing here, right? And I walk out the door of the meeting, and it was a D-line meeting. He's like, hey, come on, man, we got to go. And Dwight Clark cut me. So yeah, I got cut twice before I made it the first time in Dallas. And so I did I did 9 NFL training camps. And each one in Dallas, I thought I was getting cut. I did 4 one-year contracts out there. It's a nasty business, man. It's a terrible time of year. It really, really is. It's like Ironhead said, man, those games are so important. And, people sometimes make light of them. Obviously, they're not what the fans are there to see, but you're watching guys, figure out if they're going to have a career. And I got cut twice, and I played, and I got 7 of them that I didn't get cut. So that's pretty good right there. But
my NFL claim to fame was I did play in the Hall of Fame game, so that was my thing.
My first NFL game, was with the Cowboys too. It was in the Hall of Fame game against the Browns.
I remember, and Nobes, you're going to laugh your ass off, but I'm playing right guard and left guard and left tackle, and we make a scoop block, and I get off. I turn the guy's shoulders real good. I get off to the linebacker. I'm blocking him and this and that. We're going back to the huddle, high five, and like, yeah, dude, good job. We're watching the film 2 days later. The O-line coach is like, that's your linebacker, the guy 3 yards in the backfield making that play. And I was like, oh, my God, I never even saw him. And when they say the speed from high school to college is like, it's a big difference. But the difference from college to the NFL is absurd. Absolutely absurd.
Yeah, it really is. It's terrifying how fast those people move.
I was so proud of myself. I was like, yeah, we got him.
Look at me.
Yeah. No, it's a hard deal. It's a hard time of year. There's a lot of guys that are going to play their last football games, and most of the guys are guys that have never been cut before in their entire life. Goon, I'm sure that was the first time I had ever been told I wasn't good at something athletically. You know what I mean? Was when I got cut in the NFL, and that's a blow to the ego, man. There's no doubt about it.
And then you're watching 12-year NFL guys. Their lives just changed overnight. They've done 7, 8, 9, 10 years in the league, and they get the tap, and it's like, wow.
Oh, yeah.
His life. It's like a whole life-changing thing watching these guys, and you're just a kid trying to make a team. This guy's a grown man who has wife and kids at home, big difference.
I remember, I think, Goon, I think you said it's a term I've used for years now, right? You die your first death, right? And you become, you're old Pat, you're gone now, right? Like that guy's gone. Once it's over, it never comes back. And you got to figure out what to do next. And some will do it earlier, some of us do it later.
And as I was told, my first 10 days of like camp or whatever, the sooner you learn this is a business, the better you're off. And it takes your first time getting cut to realize that, like, wait, this isn't about the best players. This is a whole different There's a whole different world going on here that we don't know about, that we've never – it's not the football that you and I would think of.
Right. Oh, yeah. It's a
business. There's a lot more that goes into it, and it's crazy. So I'm watching the NFL Network in the last few days, and I'm watching these guys at camp, and it literally my back just starts flaming up. My knee starts swelling. And what reminds you of camp the most? I mean, you know where I live, obviously, in State College. You visited, but it's the smell of the weather at like 7 or 8 in the morning, and the heat and the humidity, and you have practice. It's the worst freaking thing in the world. And you did the whole Dallas, which is in California. That had to have been hot as hell.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, my first couple of years in Dallas, we were in Wichita Falls, Texas, which is the hottest place in America, I can promise you. And one year it was 100 every day for 30 days and over 110 for like 10 or 11 days. And we were still practicing at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, man. They wouldn't even take guys into IV them. Dudes would just fall out on the ground. They just lay down, right? And the training staff would run around, give them some salt pills, jab them with an IV, right? Leave them on the field, and then they'd bring a golf cart around and pick guys up. It was like triage. It was like war, man. Like, you're like, what in the hell is going on out here? And you'd walk into the locker room, and before you got to where the actual lockers were, there was a big room with 10 to 15 trainer beds in there with IV hangers, and they'd be full, man. And what was really funny though in Dallas, right, is like it's always the skinny guys that cramp, right? Fat guys don't really cramp up like that. So we kind of waddle in, right? Everybody's dying, and you're disgusting because you lost 20 pounds. But you'd go in, and there'd be all these wide receivers laying there with needles in their arms, dying. And it's miserable, man. It was a 6-week camp. I mean, you'd go away for 6 weeks. Yeah. In the heat and just grind, and you go home for a game and fly back or drive back. It is a miserable experience. I mean, there's no doubt about it, right? It's the smell. There's something there. It's the dew on the grass in the morning when you walk out, right? Your shoes get wet. And you're just like, damn it, this is gonna suck. And Shark Week. Anytime Shark Week comes on, I get twitchy because it reminds me of camp too for some reason.
Brandon, a couple questions I have for you in particular, and Goon, you can certainly weigh in too, but with all of the experiences you had, Brandon, how there's 3 parts to my question. Let me start with just how similar or different were the programs that and organizations that you were with in terms of terminology and just the basic preparation in terms of like the drills you're doing, and is it pretty standardized, or is there a wide variety of what you experience in different camps?
Unfortunately, it's the same game, but nobody uses the same words. And one of the really interesting things, and we joke about this a lot as a group, anybody that played at Penn State and then moved on to the NFL, it was almost like you had to learn football all over again, because some of the things that we called positions and formations and fronts here was, I don't know, from like a bygone era, right? Like from the 50s. Like I have no idea where it was from. So like I remember getting to San Francisco and not knowing a thing. I mean, nothing. Like didn't understand what was going on, didn't understand terminology. It's literally learning a new language. It's like going in and taking German or French or Spanish, and in 6 weeks you have to be fluent by the end of it.
Now you're bringing back college nightmares for me.
Yeah. So I mean that really is how. And then you go to another team, but then eventually there's enough similarities where you can go, okay, well this over front, they maybe call it over G in Dallas, right? So, but you can put them together, and so now I've got all these layers, right? I'm the defensive coordinator at the high school. I've got all these layers of football now that I have to kind of work my way through as I put something together. I'm like, well, this is called this, is called this, is called this, but right now we call it this, and that's where I am. So it's crazy, man, because it is the exact same game everywhere, but very rarely do you find 2 places where the terminology is going to be the same. Guys, I am the defensive coordinator at the high school.
Yep.
And I have to go to camp right now.
We appreciate the time, man.
I would love to continue this conversation, but I'm going to go sweat my tail off out there on the field and yell at some teenagers.
Good luck to you, man.
Thanks, boys.
Thanks. We appreciate the time. Let's take a short break here, and Goon and I will be back. We'll continue the conversation because Goon, I want to follow up just a little bit with you on kind of the staying with that theme of how different the NFL is to the football you experienced prior to that, as we continue with the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show after this.
The State College Spikes are back home tonight at 6:35 to take on the Trenton Thunder. Medler Field at Leblano Park goes to the Dogs on Bark in the Park night. Bring your four-legged friend to the game for a barking good time. Plus, it's $2 Tuesday with outfield bleacher seats, hot dogs, popcorn, and walking tacos, all just $2 a piece. Bark in the Park and $2 Tuesday tonight at 6:35. For tickets, call 814-272-1711 or buy and download at statecollegespikes.com.
Lion Country Kia is offering exceptional deals on your new Kia during Kia's Command the Season event.
We have a nice selection on the 2021 Kia Sportage with various options and prices as low as $26,800, saving you $3,000. Or if you demand big power and towing capacity, slip into one of the 2021 Kia Sorrentos available on our lot, starting at $32,680.
Discover why Kia drivers throughout the area come to Lion Country Kia or visit online at lioncountrykia.com.
Quaker Steak and Lube is throwing open the garage doors and setting up the umbrellas. It's patio season. Come enjoy great food, drinks, and fun in the sun. There's always something happening at Quaker Steak and Lube, but we're really amping up our event calendars for our favorite time of year. Visit thelube.com to find out what's happening at your local lube this season. Lunch, happy hour, dinner, or late night, indoors or outside, at Quaker Steak and Lube, you'll always find big flavors, friendly faces, and lots of fun.
Hi, Johnny Broom here. If you're in the market for a new Hyundai or a pre-owned car, truck, van, or SUV, nobody beats a Blaze Alexander deal. But don't take my word for it.
Hey, Goon says tell him Johnny sent you.
Hey, tell him Johnny sent ya.
Tell him Johnny sent ya.
Wait, tell him Juan or tell him Johnny sent ya?
Tell him Johnny sent ya.
Here at Bill Pickles Tap Room, we say,
tell him Johnny sent ya.
And remember,
and we welcome you back into the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show on a sweltering Tuesday here in the Valley of Happiness. Dear Goon, before we get back to our NFL talk, how was the vacay for you? I trust that a good time was had by all.
Absolutely. Fantastic time in the Bahamas. Love going down there. We stayed at a buddy of ours' house down in the Bahamas. So we've been there. We were there for 8 days and got back and had a little accident at home with one of our little puppies. So I'm remotely trying to get her healed up. So all is well. That ends well. She had surgery yesterday and everything's cleaned up. She's good to go. Just got some rehab. So it's good. We can go to rehab together. I gotta walk my fat ass a little bit from eating so much and drinking so much the last 8 days. So she needs a couple walks a day. So guess Daddy.
There you go.
Nurse Goon is going to take care of little girl, baby. So, yeah, but it was a great time. Watch you guys a little bit. Don't remember much what you guys were talking about. It was a little late in the day for me when you're in paradise.
I hear you. Completely.
Going back to what me and Brandon were saying, I'm telling you, I mean, it's the smell, dude. It's always the smell and, like, the heat and stuff like that. So, Ironhead, there's a story from back in – remember the old football story when they had, like, the early morning – practice scenes and guys are hitting and getting it, but before the sun's even up? That's actually true. So the old man would have our hardest practice at 7 o'clock in the morning. So he was smart. I mean, like Brandon said, when they were in Dallas, they're playing at 4 in the afternoon, 112-degree temperature. You know, Joe would have the half pad practice then. So 7 o'clock in the morning, you're on the field and you're in full pads. And I'm not lying to you. You were hitting at 7 o'clock in the morning. You're at 7 in the morning, you have full helmet, full pads, sweating, bloody, all this and all that, strapping up and hitting each other. And then you were allowed to stretch after your warm-up lineup exercises going one-on-ones against guys. That was a warm-up. So, yeah.
Good. A couple of things I was going to ask Brandon. We'll try to get him back on again here in the coming weeks. But wanted to touch in with you on this. one is when you talk about the football being different, especially for incoming guys, the draftees or the new free agents to a team. How much are they telling you, listen, this is what you need to do to get prepared for camp? Or is it pretty much, hey, it's on you. You get in here and, it's up to you to get yourself in whatever shape you think you need.
Well, the whole shape thing, that's on you. That's 100% on you. So it was different back when we went out because rookies weren't allowed into the facility until mid-June. So we only had about a month to prepare for camp, whereas now guys are going out right after draft and they can move in and get down there. I don't know why they had those regulations. I think it had something to do with, obviously, because they've slotted off the draft picks and how much people are getting paid and guys are signing much earlier. I mean, how many times do you see a rookie holdout right now? You don't see them.
Not very often anymore.
You know what I mean? It was usually you weren't in camp. Marvin Harrison was the first draft pick of my class with Indianapolis, and he held out a couple days, but he was out there. But you weren't allowed to be on the practice field, but not under contract. So guys get under contract so much faster now. So they're at camp, so they actually can have meetings, have their off-season stuff with the other guys. Because I remember when I got drafted, it was like 4 days later we had a rookie camp for 2 days, and then the veterans were there afterwards. But we weren't allowed to stay for the other camp because it was just veterans. And it's a whole different world because you're not really part of the team as of yet. They just want to see what you can do. And then they give you a playbook and say, go home and study it. And you're like, like Brandon said about the terminology, our terminology was a little bit different than the rest of football. Some people would call over-under 34 versus a 43. We would call them eagle shorts, or it was just eagle long, eagle short to us. Okie would be an even or an odd front type of thing because Oklahoma back in the 70s ran an even front defense. So Penn State, our coaches were older. So their terminology was from the 70s still. And it was hard to make that adjustment at first, but then a guy looked at me and says, dude, if there's a guy on the center and there's nobody on the guards, it's an odd front. And I was like, oh, okay, thanks, man. I appreciate that. And I picked it up from there. But, and then what is different is, again, you have to realize, and the sooner you realize, the better, that it's no longer a game. It is a job. And you want to treat it as a game because you've never ever been told no in your life when it comes to football. You've always been the number one player, the top player in your high school, one of the top players in your class, one of the top players in your college, university, all of that stuff. Then you go out there and you're getting beat up by guys who are your size, just as fast, just as strong. And, it works on you mentally that, you have to make those adjustments. And then you have to adjust to the speed. But I always thought that the NFL, the great organizations, do a very good job bringing their young guys along. And, I look at a team like your Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think of the Green Bay Packers are the two marquee programs that I know of that literally they draft a guy and say, okay, you're a Pittsburgh Steeler or you're a Green Bay Packer. And they bring you along, knowing that they drafted you for a reason. Where some people, it's like if you're not, I'll say I was with the Indianapolis Colts, and if you weren't a two-time All-American or an All-Pro instantly, it was like they almost like moved on from you pretty quick.
Yeah.
It was really, really weird. And then, again, as I said, the sooner you get to learn and realize that it is a business, the better. And sometimes it's too late for a lot of guys.
And that kind of leads into my next question, because I know it's a business, and I know, but all the way through in football, right? It's about relationships. I mean, like life is, but I mean, but in high school, right? I mean, you're there with your buddies, you're good friends, and you obviously, hopefully at least, are bonding to some degree with your coaches, and certainly in college, right? I mean, you're most of the time the guy that recruited you is there, hopefully, for at least the better part of your career, and there's obviously a chemistry there and a special bond. How difficult is it to forge those relationships in this business setting, both with teammates and with coaches, or is that just not really part of the process? Because I mean, part of it has to be. I'm listening to Troy Polamalu's Hall of Fame speech, and it's. I mean, it's wonderful, and obviously he had a great experience, and making anybody listening to that want to suit up for the Steelers. But when you're again, especially when you're just trying to make the team and make the roster,
huge difference.
It's got to be very difficult to try to establish any kind of trusting bond with coaches or teammates.
Yeah, I mean, it's the old whatever. The more you can do, the more they're going to see, and all it takes is one coach to really fall in love with you, to push for you in the meeting rooms. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, the scouts are going to scout you and draft you, and then if you're there, and then it makes them look good if you make the team, but it makes them look bad if you're not playing well. So they're in your corners a little bit. But I mean, the offensive line coach and the offensive coordinators, it's about production. And if you're not producing, they'll get in you a little bit. But there's also, there is a hierarchy, like Brandon said. Troy Polamalu was a first-round pick coming out of USC.
Right.
There's he's in the luxury hotel. He's not in the 4G classroom. You know what I mean? So there is that hierarchy, and you're a first-round pick, so you are a commodity to them. And that is a high-priced commodity when you're a first-round pick. So they're going to take care of you, and they are going to have special relationships. But I'm sure there are guys who've gone to Pittsburgh Steelers camps and have had a horrible time because they don't feel like they got a good shot or they weren't given an honest shot. And, and that definitely does happen. I mean, any NFL player will tell you a first-round pick will get 3 chances in the NFL. You get 3. When you're an undrafted free agent, you get 1.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. So if you're a bust, you'll get 1 or 2 years in the NFL just at that team because they're not going to give you a $7 million signing bonus and then kick you to the curb after 17 games. They'll give you at least 2 years, and you can be the worst football player in the world, but they're going to cut you, say, after 2 years, but then someone else is going to pick you up because you're a former first-round pick.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everybody has different experiences, and a lot of it depends on how you came to the team.
Yeah.
And then, by the way, Polamalu's speech was absolutely amazing. I thought that Peyton Manning's speech was absolutely amazing. All of those guys' speeches were great. I laughed my ass off when what's his name? Peyton was talking crap about Ray Lewis. So I see my boy Todd Speck asking the question, was there rookie hazing? Yes, we all had to sing for the team and do the little skits and stuff like that. So got a couple good ones. I guess we're on the internet, so I can probably tell the story. So a lot of it's just making fun of coaches and stuff like that. And that's all it is. You can get up there and again, you make fun of yourself. And I mean, I got up there, I sung my alma mater. They're telling me scream the Penn State alma mater. I'm like, I don't know the goddamn words. I'm like, that's about all I knew. So that didn't go too far. But that, we had a rookie, and then there was the rookie hazing night. Not the hazing night, but the rookie talent night. And, they called a couple guys up each night. And, they just 100 guys in a room just laughing their ass off at you and this and that. And, the good thing is if you do make the team, then next year you're the one sitting around laughing. So, but you're asking about coaches. Okay, yeah. You're talking about that. But I will say that it is a brotherhood thing amongst the players. You know what I mean? So you have a guy there who went to college. I honest to God, Scott Radisick. We're talking earlier about an older veteran getting cut. I mean, Scott Radisick played on the '82 national championship team, and he was with Indianapolis when I got drafted in 1996. That was his last stop. So he got released right before camp or right at camp or during camp and all that. But like going into those 3 or 4 weeks going into the camp when I was out there working out, he had taken a little shine to me. And he said, hey, work your feet, give me your hands a little bit better, that type of stuff. I had my brother had played for the Colts. So Tony Saragusa had taken a little liking to me and stuff like that. A guy from Notre Dame was a guy named Brian Radigan. His wife married a high school classmate of mine. So he and I, we were pretty much we were tight. And then you always are tight with the person they put you in a room with. So I was lucky enough to have Casey Wiegman from Iowa, the center, who ended up having a really, really good career as a center with the Kansas City Chiefs. And he was there. We went there together, and he was an undrafted free agent because he had hurt his leg. But he was a hell of a player. And I still chat with him every once in a while through Facebook and stuff like that. But again, the relationships you're building out there are more with the players.
Gotcha.
But it is pretty funny. You do, I guess not to keep rambling on here, but one of those funny things is that, like, guys across from you played against them in college or you saw them in college. So I'm not lying. I'm playing this. I mean, you got to realize I played 4 preseason games in the NFL, so I'm not talking like I'm a 12-year NFL vet here at all. But we're playing Cincinnati in the old Riverfront Stadium. Is that what it was? Yeah, Riverfront.
Yep.
And I'm lining up, and I look across the line of scrimmage and freaking Tim Johnson from the '86 National Championship team's there. And he was with my brother, and I'm like sitting there, and I'm like, I see myself as this little 12-year-old kid lining up against Tim Johnson, who's about ready to manhandle Vinny Testaverde, and I'm just like, you know what I mean? All scared and all. So my brother Buck has a really good story. He was lining up. He got his hand down in the dirt when he was playing for the Dolphins as a rookie. He lines up. He looks across, and he's freaking Randy White sitting there, and he's like, oh, my God, I'm going to get the shit kicked out of me. Freaking Manster's going to pull my arms off, You got to get past that. You do. It just takes one time of, getting a hand on the guy or touching the guy and getting a good hit on him, and you're like, oh, I could do this. But you are a little starstruck at first. It's pretty freaking funny. I mean, my brother was like, I think that Shula called a trap, and Ed Too Tall Jones is on the right side, and Randy White's on the left side, and I got a trap Too Tall freaking Jones. You know what I mean? And it was like, I'm laughing. I was like, that's freaking awesome. Pretty cool story. But the Tim Johnson story, I laugh at that one. I get down on my stance and I'm like, oh my God. And I instantly reverted back to 12 years old watching the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah, that's and there have to be a lot of moments like that, right? For especially rookies and guys that are again not sure things to even on your roster to look around and wait a second, I'm actually on the same field here, with a Tom Brady or an Aaron Rodgers, whatever. That might be a little surreal.
The quarterback was Jim Harbaugh and the running back was Marshall Faulk.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I'm in a huddle and Marshall Faulk's behind me, and he's like pushing my head down, like, bend the hell down. I can't see. You know what I mean? And it's pretty funny because he was a great teammate because, he was – I remember – I don't know who the coach was. It was a defensive line coach, and I was Jason Horn from the University of Michigan. We were – me and him had played 3-4 years together against each other, just like – smashing each other around for years, and we finally go to NFL camp. We're on the same team, and he's like talking to me at lunch one day, and he was like, "You know what a defensive line coach told us today?" And he goes, "If you touch number 28, even a finger, just walk the hell out of camp because you're done. Don't even think about touching Marshall Faulk." He goes, "That's the franchise. Do not even lay a finger on him." And he goes, "How's that football?"
Yeah, that's interesting. That's Yeah. Well, and that's, but again, I mean, you get it, right? As far as it goes, that's, I mean, but on the other hand, if you're trying to,
you want to make a name for yourself.
I mean, come on.
I know. Well, then go beat up some offensive linemen, I guess, But I mean, that's the true story. It really is like that when it comes to the star players. And I was talking to my little brother the other day. And we're talking about how the Giants are having this supposed tough camp. That 4 NFL veterans have retired from the camp. But if you read what those guys are saying, and they're just saying, I want to do it, my body's just not responding. But you have the NFL players who are the talking heads on television who are like, oh, that's no way to treat a grown man and this and that, and it's just like, I think half of those guys just say stuff radical to get their name in the paper, But then we're talking about, Judge is running a tight camp up in New York, so they're trying to get back to, the roots. They want to see what they want to build a team. And then my brother's like, well, then you go down to Philadelphia. And I had to ask who the Eagles coach what his name was, and I don't remember. And he goes, he's running Camp Cupcake. And I have not seen a practice where those guys are actually in pads. There's always guys sitting out, a Veterans Day off and this and that. I know Roethlisberger gets a lot of them.
Yeah.
I mean, but you're talking about a 16, 17-year vet like Ben.
Right.
Right. You're going to give a guy 3 or 4 years of Veterans Day off. I mean, what are you really doing? You're not really building an atmosphere where it's going to, hey, we're going to go out here and work. Are you good enough to do that is what I should be asking.
Yeah, and and that's one of the things I wanted to talk to Brandon if we're able to get him on again some point in the future. I do want to ask just about again the different approaches and the different personalities, because we've talked about this before, where I think all kinds of different personalities can work as coaches, right? You don't have to be the fire and brimstone guy. I mean, Tony Dungy was very successful and very quiet, but you've got to be true to yourself. But I am curious about, like, does one style or another, was it more effective with Brandon in his particular case, or with you? And, how much, again, how wide of a variety is there in terms of those different personalities and the way coaches try to connect with players to get them to buy into what's going on? And part of that is, again, I think how you treat everybody, right? Like, I mean, the whole, at least in Nirvana, it's you treat everybody the same, but I mean, first of all, you can't. If you're an NFL head coach, I mean, you cannot have Ben Roethlisberger taking a pounding in preseason camp, getting ready for now a 17-game schedule at his age, and knowing that how vital he is to the Steelers' chances.
Yep. Well, I'm going to say this, that I know my experiences, and then talking when I came back and coached with Penn State, then I would go out with some NFL like scout guys. And one in particular would come to me every year, and he goes, "You guys practice harder than any other team in this country." And I just go back and I just think about like preseason practices and how it was the old school. And then like Brandon goes out to San Francisco, where that Bill Walsh was the inventor of I don't need you hitting 4 days a week to make you a better football player. I need you hitting 1 day a week. Where I think that Bill Walsh and that 49ers organization changed the game a little bit, but you better be able to prepare and be ready to go on Sunday. You just can't take a couple of days off and then roll it out there. You still need to be getting better.
And that is one of the fascinating things to me about how how coaches approach this, because it really is that there's a fine line there, right? Like, and I mean, I know there are coaches that believe that, you've just got to be physical and, injuries are part of the game and whatever. And I think you can go too far down that road. And I think we've seen teams and organizations and coaches that pay a price for it because their guys are beat up by the time the season starts. But I do think you can go too far the other way, as you're saying. I mean, it's a physical game. You've got to be ready for the physicality that comes with the regular season. And I do think it's an interesting balance. And as we continue to evolve with the rules and being more aware of head injuries and all of that, but also more aware of, listen, to perform at your optimum, right? Your body has to have that rest and recovery. I mean, there's a cycle to everything. And certainly in sports, it's critical that you understand, you, again, a coach or an organization, understand the cycle that can get you the best performance from your athletes. And that's why I was interested in how they handle the workouts, whether, everybody's kind of trying to do the same thing or everybody's just on their own.
Yeah, no one was better, and I know this for a fact, than Joe. Joe was an absolute master of looking at his players and then getting a feel for where they're at physically. He was just an absolute genius. And one of the stories I tell all the time is they were like, "What kind of man? What kind of we had?" Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've told you this story before. We had like a camp when a lot of guys were getting shin splints. And the guys were like, "What the hell's going on here?" We had 2 ACLs, or guys were pulling hamstrings and this and that. And people are like, "Oh, man, it was raining too much. It was too hot. Do this and that." And they're like, "Oh, man, what are we going to do? What's the old man going to do?" I'm like, dude, the old man has seen this he's seen every scenario 3 to 5 times. You don't coach for 61 years as the head coach and not see something over and over again and have a good feel of how to handle it. I mean, you ever watch a little video of Joe on the field? He always had his little left hand, his little pad putting notes down on his sheet, and he would go home at night and log them into his diaries and stuff like that. So it was amazing to always think that he had seen everything that could possibly come up into a football camp. I think that one year we had a flood or something. There was some kind of scenario where there was, a tornado or a hurricane came up here, and they were worried about practice and how can you do this? And I'm like, dude, relax. Joe's got this. It's probably happened 3 times to him before. But Joe had a great feel for his players. I don't know how he did it. He may have just picked a couple guys out and just followed them throughout camp to see how their legs were getting, because we all had to go into camp in shape. So if 100% of your team passes their conditioning test going into camp, your team is in shape. But now you don't want to wear them out so they're not competing, as strong as they possibly can. And he was just an absolute master at being able to read the team, knowing when he had to take the pants off. When you had to get the pads off, just go helmets, just go upper, helmets and shoulder pads, and there's no need to have a full practice. There's no reason to do this. He could cut drills during mid-practice and this and that, and he was an absolute master of how to read his team. But when it was scrimmage day and during camp, I mean, they were pretty brutal, man. There's no doubt that he would maybe cancel one-on-ones and get right into have like a little pass thud and this and that, and then go into the scrimmage. But I mean, if they were going to be a 72-play scrimmage, you were going to go 72 plays. And then 100% of the times he conditioned you at the end of the camp. So anytime you practice over the stadium, you knew it was going to be a ball buster. So, but like I said, he knew how to get his team prepared for that opening game all the time. He knew how to get a feel for him. And then even in 94, when we were just boat racing people for the first 5 weeks of the year, and then we had a bye week before we went to Michigan, but we were practicing full pads sometimes into Thursday because he felt like we weren't getting enough work on Saturday, which was the absolute truth. I mean, you know the story that the starting offense did not play past one series in the third quarter, all first 5 games of that season. So when we were at Michigan, that was the first time we actually play a full game all year. And we were tired and we were beat up, but we got through it because, the old man knew we were going to have a time when we had to do it. But if we had not done it, we'd have been in a lot of trouble.
Goon, real quick, your take on the Olympics and obviously a great showing for Penn Staters. They 4 golds, I think, in all, right? The 2 volleyball players in Haley Washington and Micah Hancock. Obviously, David Taylor in wrestling, and then Aaron McLeod got gold for the Canadian women's soccer team. But boatload of other medals, good showing for Penn State. And for USA Wrestling, a phenomenal showing. All 5 men's freestyle wrestlers medaled with 2 golds, a silver, and 2 bronzes. And the 2 golds were pretty special. David Taylor getting the
amazing
takedown with about 15 seconds left, and then Gable Stevenson with about 0.2 seconds left to pull out the heavyweight. But just a lot of fun watching. Butch and I talked a good bit about the viewership being way down here for the Olympics, and again, I think there's a wide variety of contributing reasons for it. But I thought, and obviously, I have a vested interest in the wrestling and follow the women's volleyball pretty closely. And one of my all-time favorite relationships in sports at Penn State was watching Haley Washington as a freshman and Micah Hancock as a senior, and just the way they fed off of each other and kind of the passion and joy that they brought out of each other. And it was neat to see them both be part of that U.S. Gold medal winning team.
Yeah, it was. You expected that from David, to be honest, right? That was 100%. But how he did it was amazing. It was fantastic, and I love it. But what Gable did, you're not going to see that. I don't think you're ever going to see that again. Being down that late and doing that, what he did. Women's volleyball was great, but there's two things that two scenarios that I saw that I can somewhat agree with, and that was one of the opening things going on in the Olympics was the women's soccer team kneeling. So I think that turned a whole ton of people off the Olympics, and they said, I'm not watching this. And then the second of three parts, the second one was it was on too many different channels. You couldn't be centrally located to get a flow for it. That's just what somebody had told me. They couldn't get a flow for the whole thing. And the reason is because we were 13 hours behind.
Well,
it's tough. Yeah, it's tough to do that.
And to be fair, I've read a lot of criticism of NBC and the coverage. And I guess my question is, what is it that you think NBC should have done? Part of what they're because everything was accessible, right? Yeah. And one of the problems they have now, anybody is going to have in covering the Olympics, is there are so many sports. Right. And they're spread out all over the place. You can't, and some in the wrestling community, and I'm one of them that's complaining that we didn't, there should have been some coverage of at least Taylor and Stevenson on NBC on the main channel.
Yeah, so hold on real quick. Did they monitor the NBC or the Olympic Channel feed where they get their numbers from? That's a big question.
I think it was everything.
Okay,
I think it was everything combined. So
because I would love to see the Olympic channels. I mean, the wrestling the numbers had to be off the charts.
I would think. I haven't actually seen the specific. I'll have to try to dig those up for Thursday's show. I haven't really looked and broken down that. I would think so, at least relatively speaking, within the wrestling community, because there were high hopes and expectations for this team. Again, I really thought going in, the U.S. had an excellent shot of getting as many as 4 gold medals, and Kyle Dake had the one just bad match, and obviously Snyder. I mean that was got beat off of his own shot, and that's part of wrestling. But I mean he's obviously capable of winning another gold medal as well. But so I think the fact that you had the names that you did too, right? I mean, Kyle Dake is an all-time name. Gable Stevenson, with the shows that he puts on, is an all-time name in college wrestling, and obviously David Taylor is as well. And Kyle Snyder, I mean, is already a legend, one of the greatest U.S. wrestlers ever, and he's only whatever he is. What is he? 24, 23, 24, somewhere in that neighborhood now, which is just kind of crazy to think about. If he wants to, he could probably go another couple of Olympic cycles and maybe surpass Bruce Baumgartner in terms of international accomplishments, again, if that's what he wants to do. But so I'll be curious to see that. But I don't know, as you said, because of the time difference and the number of different sports, I thought NBC did a pretty nice job of at least getting everything covered. Now, it was hard to find if you didn't know, there wasn't a readily available, hey, this is what's going on live at this time, at least that I could find. There must have been a synopsis somewhere, but it was not readily available for those that are not experts at knowing how to dig that stuff up.
Yeah. Well, social media also hurt too. I mean, if you know the outcome 12 hours before it goes off, it's like, why do I watch, the U.S. get beat and get silver? I mean, that's how I would feel. Yeah. I mean, I would watch all the matches and stuff like that live, but going into it, I mean, you're watching the men's basketball team and, they lose to France. I mean, were you going to watch that game that night? That's just how it's just so up to the minute, so quick that it's tough to have prime time, like surprises.
Yes.
So you figure go back to the 80 Miracle on Ice, and that wasn't a live broadcast.
Right.
But people still don't know. They had no idea who won and who didn't win that game. Right. Nowadays, hell, you'd have it at everybody. The whole thing would be streamed live on your phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So big difference.
Yeah, huge difference. And I don't know. It is It is going to be interesting to see, just from an advertising standpoint, what happens here in 2024, because there are a lot of advertisers that are very upset and very disappointed with the numbers and with the money that was spent. And I will be curious to see what happens when the 2024 games now roll around and how everything gets handled from a business standpoint, and then what the viewership ends up with. I still think they're just I know they're going after the younger demographic, and I don't know if I haven't seen or know how everything broke down. I just think that they're adding too many sports, and it's making it it's not feeling like the Olympics because of again, just how widespread everything is now. And I think it's diluting the overall product of the Olympics for the average sports fan.
I agree, man. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, when is race walking a sport now? Is that not? Should that be another track and field event? I don't know. So, there is a ton of stuff out there, but I always look at the Olympics as like a new way to watch a different sport. So, I mean, if there's other stuff out there to go watch, I will.
Yeah,
I think the Winter Olympics is the one that's just adding too much stuff, and it's just adding sports that American kids that compete at.
Yeah,
rather than what the traditional sports are in the winter.
Well, dear Goon, good to have you back, my man.
Yeah, buddy, I'm back.
Let's do it again Thursday. What do you
say? Hopefully live there Thursday. Maybe we'll see.
That sounds good. Best of luck to your pooch as well. Appreciate it as always. Our thanks to Chris Buchanani for handling things behind the scenes here as always as well. And we will talk to you again on Thursday with another edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead Show. Until then, be good and